thank you so much for inviting WABE a closer look into your home. What do you make of this crowd?
It's beautiful. I mean, this is what the last day of Black History Month is supposed to look like, right?
All right.
In Zone 4, right?
That's right. We only got, 9 hours left? We're going to make the best of it.
We're going to make the best of it, yes, yes.
Let's begin with the beginning. How long have y'all been open?
The Ke'nekt itself is celebrating being half a decade old. So we are celebrating being 5 years this year, but we have been in this community for over 20 years.
So let me ask you this then. How do you define the power of community and being able to have folks be a part of decisions that directly impact their quality of life in their community?
Ooh. We wasn't going to get like how I was doing.
No, we ain't got time for how you doing.
Oh my goodness. I think only in Atlanta, within the system of the MPU that Maynard Jackson started, where this idea around centering community's voice is supposed to always be important. And the community of Westview, the community of the city of Atlanta, has this long, rich history of community engagement, as well as community voicing their opinion in very strong manners. If you've ever been to a community meeting, you know that those are some of the spiciest conversations that have a framework where that dialogue can exist.
What is it about this community, this Westview neighborhood community and surrounding neighborhoods that you all wanted to be here and you've been here for so long?
I think if you look at the neighborhood of Westview, when white flights happened, right when there was the first Black pastor over at Calvary across the street, where there was this idea to have this pastor in this neighborhood. And then we see families that were here in this neighborhood. We see legacy families. The reason that I am this community person in the neighborhood is literally based on my neighbor, Mr. Jim, that lives still in this neighborhood currently. But when Mark and I moved here, he knew we were from Brooklyn and we wouldn't know how to cut our grass. And so he said that he was going to cut our grass. He didn't ask permission. And so that meant every Sunday, Mr. Jim was on his riding lawnmower at 6 o'clock in the morning, cutting the grass, right? And so what I feel for Westview and for this community is there's something about legacy, right? There's something about the sustainability of Black folks in this neighborhood. When we moved here, I didn't know about the Beltline, but I did know that there were some amazing, beautiful, older Black folks in this neighborhood that made me feel safe and made my family feel safe. And that's what inspired me to be here. Wasn't the Beltline. It was beautiful, legacy Black folks that fought their way during white flight, sustained a neighborhood, and remained in the neighborhood.
And is that also the core of what the Ke'nekt is about, the Ke'nekt Cooperative?
Absolutely. So the Ke'nekt, we call ourselves this Black liberated third space where community lives, where community gathers to exchange ideas. We wanted to decolonize that term third space. Anyone that's at an MPU meeting or a community meeting, when we're there, we hear developers announce a third space. They're going to bring a third space to the neighborhood, right? And I kept hearing that term over and over and over again. I noticed that I only heard white developers say that. I was never in a space where Black folks said we're going to bring a third space. A third space is simply where the community gathers. So in Westview and West End, that could be the masjid, it could be the barbershop, it could be where we're getting our nails done or our hair braided. And so for us, we felt like, why use this term third space, as it normally means when we hear it, that we're going to be displaced. And the Ke'nekt story is the story of resilience. And so we say we are gathering, or we're providing a space where the community can gather. And the Ke'nekt is around cooperative economics, the solidarity of it all, meaning that we truly believe in community over capitalism.
And that is truly enveloped in all of this space. So if I could say it as my daddy would say it, this is blackness.
This is blackity black, black,
Okay,
black,
all right now.
up in here, right?
Blackity black, black, black.
Yes. And so for us, orange is on the floor because it means safety and shelter. Anytime that Black women feel safe in a space, you're going to be okay. Anytime that Black people feel safe in a space, you're going to be okay. everything is very intentional. From seeing that beautiful black family at the entrance of the Ke'nekt, that's my family when you come in, that beautiful black liberation flag. The very first image you see is black excellence, and there's this beautiful black boy that is looking up at the sky. And we want everyone that comes into this space to feel that, to feel that joy, and to know that joy exists here, happiness exists here, and inspiration exists here. And we're not going nowhere.
You sure?
Period.
All right, all right. Now, we have to pause for a second because, as you know, with Coffee Conversations, it's never really about the host. Ooh.
This is my cousin here. Like, we're going to do this every month. We're going to do this every month.
It's never about the host. However, every Coffee Conversation stop, every coffee shop has a specialty drink of the day. You have just had mine delivered.
Yes.
I have not. I don't know what's in it.
Yes.
I see some rose petals.
I just want to point out.
All right.
Right. So what we delivered is a very delicious crafted rose chai latte. Over here at the Ke'nekt, it is actually edible rose petals that are actually on there, right? Because a rose needs a rose needs a rose.
For sure, for sure.
When we looked at the history, we was like, nobody's ever given her roses. And so there are roses now on her drink.
What's wrong with y'all community? I've been here for 30 years.
Over here in
Westview,
we just have a level of our experiences and quality. And so enjoy the edible rose petals because we wanted a rose for a rose.
And let's talk about the coffee for a moment because it's important too. Your coffee is from a local folks you partner with here.
Yes, and for us, there's a portion of our proceeds that we redistribute back into. Did it taste good?
Oh my, this is wonderful.
Right?
I was going to say something else, but it's a family show.
So one of the things about the beloved community is that you're supposed to cause no harm. That's a sentence. It's not an idea. It's cause no harm. Anytime that there are third wave coffee shops, murals, and bike lanes that pop up in neighborhoods that look like ours, that is, there's this idea or this Harvard study that shows that that actually causes or contributes to the increase in property taxes. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter the good that we have in this space, we still potentially are contributing to causing harm. So with us, and because we believe, us at the Ke'nekt, and because we believe in the solidarity of things and the mutual aid of things, it's important for us that there's a portion of our proceeds that we actually redistribute back into the community. So we say over here at the Ke'nekt, yes, we know the coffee is good, but it's also a sipper revolution.
Change happens.
Yes.
You know, what concerns do you have? Let's start with the good, though. What do you like about the good challenges and changes that are happening here in Westview in this community? What excites you?
What excites me is still seeing some of the most amazing legacy black neighbors still in this neighborhood, right? If there's not a space that black folks can age and remain, right? Here in Westview and West End, we still have that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a positive thing.
Okay.
I think it's beautiful that the babies behind that counter have grown up. A lot of them have grown up in this neighborhood, gone off to Spelman, Claflin.
All right.
Howard.
HU.
Right. Agnes Scott and Kennesaw State. We love them too, right? But they have literally grown up in this community, gone off to institutions, and brought their black excellence right back to their neighborhood, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's really, some of the positive things are, on a random Thursday, it's important for Westview, Oakland City, West End to show up, right? And there's still this sense of community. Our community feels like family, right? And so I think those are some of the positive things. Some of the challenging things are, I think about what does it look like when neighbors are displaced? Okay. What does it look like when we actually can see a neighbor go from being displaced to being displaced, maybe start to experience some mental health challenges, and we know that neighbor as they're experiencing being unhoused, suffering with mental health challenges, and that's a challenge. It's a challenge as the neighborhood grows, the lack of infrastructure. I don't know about y'all, but if another pothole hits my car, Councilman Dozier, right? If another one hits my car, right?
Yeah.
And then some of the challenges are, we know that when there is a lack of policy that is implemented at the city level or at the state level, a lot of times for us in this community, we're impacted the most, right?
Well, you talk to other business owners here,
Yeah.
you talk to residents here. Do you get the sense they feel like they have a good pathway and access to the city to be part of these changes, or to talk about the challenges?
I think we have access to some elected officials, right? I think a lot of folks at the city level are extremely overworked. I will say, as a business owner, or I like to call myself an entrepreneur for the past 20 years, some of the same challenges of dealing with the city still exists. Like, you could call one department, get one answer, go to another department. It's really challenging. I also think that sometimes the city is really hard to navigate. And so when you think about maybe our legacy business owner, Bob Philogene from Westview Maker Space, that might be in his 60s or 70s, may not have the day or 2 or 3 days to sit downtown at City Hall to try and navigate stuff. So it's really, really challenging. And I think what I really want to be able to uplift and remind people, yes, the economy is recovering, but there was this report done by, I think it's the McKissing report, I hope Kyle is in here, that said that it would take Black-owned businesses 7 to 10 years to be able to recover from the pandemic. I feel like it's more 8 to 15, right? So a lot of legacy Black-owned businesses still have a long road to go. And we're also seeing that as the poly-pandemic system, or whatever we're calling it, we are seeing this move back to, or this shift back to, legacy Black-owned businesses being displaced, right? And so the story of the Ke'nekt is the very first season, sorry, I hit that mic, the first season of West End Mall making that announcement that it was developed. Y'all remember season 1 of West End Mall being developed, right? So season 1, when it was announced, right, that started this tsunami effect of commercial property being purchased, right? And in those meetings that a lot of us sat at, there was not one conversation that included what was going to happen to the legacy Black-owned businesses. We asked those, oh yes.
No, go ahead.
Yes, we asked those questions over and over again. No one ever answered. So at our...
Being the developer or the city? When you say no one answered the question.
Both of them.
Okay.
No, both of them, right? And at that time, a lot of us in this room, we were so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed because what we have learned from Westview and West End is how to engage the city. We spent hours in these conversations, hours and hours and hours, right? And when we would ask the question, hey, this is great, what's happening to the legacy Black-owned businesses? There was never any idea or a response. So being the folks that we are in Westview and West End, we mobilize a lot of folks to be able to meet at our other family business, which is called the Good Hair Shop, which is literally 2 blocks up the street. Mobilize community folks, elected officials. Councilman Dozier was not in office then, I want to point that out, to be able to come and talk about what was going to happen to legacy-owned businesses. During a meeting about the displacement of Black-owned businesses, my family business received an eviction letter, right? So the Ke'nekt is literally born out of that trauma. At that moment, we knew no one's coming to save us, still to this day.
Eviction not due to failure to pay, but because of development, you were being displaced.
Yeah, yes. And some other things. The landlords might have another opinion,
Sure,
right?
sure.
But for us, it was how poignant that in a meeting about the displacement of legacy-owned Black businesses.
You get an eviction notice.
I get an eviction letter, right? And so nobody's coming to save Black-owned businesses in Atlanta, right? There's this idea, we get excited about shiny new things, right? But can we have that same excitement around that barbershop that's been here for 20 years, that made sure that the babies had money, to get to their field trips and things? Can we get just as excited about Healthful Essence that's been in our neighborhood talking about vegan food since the 80s? Where is that? Where is the support and the resources there? And sometimes it's just lacking.
Will the Ke'nekt Cooperative be here, you think? Or how hopeful are you that you will be here to see this transition?
It's hard. It's hard.
Really?
I often say that the Ke'nekt in the future might be the only place that you see black businesses exist.
You really believe that?
I kind of do, right? To be able to already see this rapid increase of legacy business owners that are already being displaced, which we knew as business owners. Because remember, season 1 of Weston Mall, we were like, hey, before there was a COVID,
Right.
we said, here's a crisis, right? And then I think sometimes the support that comes doesn't come from the lens that legacy black-owned business owners need. It definitely doesn't come in the rapid response. There's this thing or this statement that's called the giving gap.
Right.
There's this huge giving gap as it relates to black-owned businesses and black women-led businesses.
When we started community conversations and coffee conversations, one of the things that I heard from the community was we have a hard time connecting with or getting our council members to come out. I got to be very fair. I mean, I'm feisty, but I'm fair.
Yes.
There are some council members who always show up,
Absolutely.
who always answer
Absolutely.
the call to be a guest.
Absolutely.
Is that a big problem then? Is just to getting
I think we as a community need to start thinking, why is it that only during election season that we see council people show up to give turkeys? The question should be, why are your constituents hungry?
Ooh.
Why are they hungry?
Yeah.
Right? So I think as we look at the responsibility and the accountability, right? It is sad because I do feel like when Maynard Jackson was in office and he thought of what this system would look like, right? What we have right now is not what the vision was, right? I know when I attend a lot of city council meetings, I'm always in awe of the absentee rate, because I'm kind of like, I thought this is your job. I don't know what job you get to be in where there's this expectation of that you're absent all the time. It's unfortunate that council people don't even know their districts. I can't tell you the last time I've seen several council people. I know they show up at the Ke'nekt. I know they show up because they want to, kind of be fake woke adjacent, right? They want to be able to take a picture, right? But there's no real life community involvement.
And that's your assessment for not all of them, but some of them?
That is, when I call Councilman Dozier, he answers.
Okay. Well,
So when I call Councilman Dozier,
okay.
he answers.
Fair enough.
How many council people do we have?
Fair enough.
Right. And I also want to highlight that Councilman Dozier is not even over our district.
Correct. And we did reach out to Councilmember Boone because this is part of
okay, we
her
remember
district,
name.
correct?
Okay. Yes.
Now, one thing about my producers, I want to be very clear.
Yes.
They reach out. They keep reaching out.
Yes.
So if anybody ever says, well, nobody from Closer Look contacted me, that's a lie.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it like that because my producers are very thorough about that.
Thank you.
So we did reach out. As we begin to wrap up your segment, where do
Yes.
you hope to see the Ke'nekt Cooperative? I'm not going to say 5 years. Let's say 2 years when the World Cup comes here.
Ooh. When the World Cup comes, I hope that Atlanta will remember what happened when the Super Bowl came and the relationship to the minority suppliers. I hope when the World Cup comes, I hope Atlanta will remember the legacy black-owned businesses and the AU, like Morris Brown, like ITC, right? Like Clark, like Spelman, and Morehouse. I hope Atlanta will remember when the World Cup comes in 2 years from now that community deserves safe streets now and not just to wait until the World Cup comes. I think 2 years from now, I hope Atlanta will remember that we just need access to things and to show up in a consistent manner and not just when the World Cup comes. I also hope that when in 2 years, Atlanta that will remember that our unhoused community needs support and not just to pick up our community, and shuttle them other places. In 2 years from now, when the World Cup comes, I hope Atlanta remembers the world is watching. And the world is going to remember what has happened in Atlanta now. And I know you have other people that are going to come and talk about it, talk about some things. But 2 years from now, around the world, people will reference what is happening and happened in this city. And I hope Atlanta is ready for that.
All right. Kilmy Rollins, co-owner of the Ke'nekt Cooperative.
We got to do this more often.
She'll also be filling in as the host for me, because
We doing this again. So first off, how was the drink?
Oh, the drink is fabulous, and I'm about to get another one. So, and this is it's the drink of the day. So, do we have a name for this?
We fell off on the little name there. We were so trying to get these edible
Just
rose.
call it the rose.
We're gonna call it the rose.
The rose. So
Yeah,
come in,
you call it rose.
get the rose.
Yes.
It's beautiful. Best
Yes.
of luck to you.
Thank
you so much.
You
for being
too.
hosting
You as
us.
well.
All right. This is Closer Look, Coffee Conversations. We're back in a moment.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's about, yeah. If you get closer. Yeah, I'm sorry. Rose, before you ask.
Oh, she looks just like you. Look at that baby. You ain't getting no sleep. Because I'm talking right into it. Is it? Okay.
You got it.
And you're listening to Closer Look live from the Ke'nekt Cooperative. For this month's Coffee Conversation in partnership with the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta. We're in the Westview neighborhood, and today it's all about the power of community, a vision of Atlanta's first black mayor, Maynard Jackson. He wanted to create a pathway, access for the residents, for the community, to have access to the city, and not just to drop in and talk to the city council members and the mayor, but to be part of planning, which, depending on who you ask, that happens, or it don't happen. And so now, as we celebrate, I think 50 years of NPUs, neighborhood planning units, is now to talk about how do we improve this access, this pathway. And so now I'm joined by Atlanta City Council Member Jason Dozer, District 4, and Rohit Mahatra, Executive Director of the Center for Civic Innovation. First of all, thank you both for joining us. You always take time whenever we hit you up, whether it's 2 a.m., and you up anyway because you got kids. You all always make time for us. But I want to begin with you, Councilmember Dozier. I want to talk about that vision that Maynard Jackson had of giving residents, the community, access, not just to talking, but access to being part of planning and development in their communities. How would you grade or assess that vision right now?
Yeah, you know, I never thought about it in terms of grade. I feel like I've spent a lot of time over the years criticizing, how community engagement works in the city, but I do think the bones are absolutely there to make robust community engagement, community input happen in the city. I think we have a wonderful staff at the Department of City Planning. I wish we had more folks at the Department of City Planning focused specifically on our NPU system, specifically focused on community engagement and meeting the community where they are. Not everyone has an opportunity to spend evening away from their kids, away from dinner, to come to a NPU meeting and think about all the different ways in which community engagement can happen. It's something that I want to see happen. So as an overall grade, I'll give it a C. I think, like I said, I think the structure is there. I think that we have wonderful staff, but we could be doing a whole lot more to get to an A.
A whole lot more. Well, Rohit, what about you? I mean, we're going to get to what you all have been doing at the center, but how would you assess that access right now?
Well, I think like most things in Atlanta, it depends on who you are and where you live. Because just like every other system in Atlanta, the NPU system is not shy to discriminate on whose voice actually matters. The question that the NPU system was designed to answer was who in the city of Atlanta holds power to strategically plan what the city of Atlanta is going to be in the future. And before 1974, that was a question that only elite white men were allowed to answer. And so the demographics of Atlanta have changed, but the discrimination within that system has not.
You all decided to take a comprehensive look at the NPU model, the structure, and then make some recommendations. Before we get to those recommendations, I want the audience to understand what details went into first, just hearing what was, I don't want to say what was wrong, but what needed to change, perhaps.
Yeah, first and foremost, anything like a system like the NPU system, if you want to actually take a look at it, you have to go back and understand its history. Its history is extremely important because when the city of Atlanta created a charter in 1974, elected the first black mayor in the American South, the NPU system was created in response to the requirement that the state had for us to create a comprehensive development plan.
Okay.
But what Maynard Jackson said was, I don't want to just create a plan. I want to make sure that folks are at the table to decide what their neighborhood is going to look like. Otherwise, we're about to be on the menu. And so what we had was a mayor that said, the things that are built for us without us are not for us. And the idea was, for us in the work that we did, the idea was to look at how did we get to the point where a system was designed to actually lay out a plan, and then from there, actually make sure that that plan includes people's voices. We have strayed so far away from that.
How did that happen?
I think it comes down to, number one, when the system was created, it was under the Department of Budget and Planning, and we got away and we split those two departments. So our budget is actually not based off of a plan. Oftentimes it's based off of tradition and vibes. And so we have to get to a point where the planning is actually dictating where our money is going. So that's number one. And there's not agreement on what the purpose of the NPU system is supposed to be in the first place.
What do you mean there's not an agreement?
So what we interviewed and talked to well over 1,000 people over the course of about four to 5 years. Shout out to Sile Patton who led a lot of that work. When we talked to folks, everyone said what they believe the NPU system is to them, but whether it was the mayor's office or the city council or residents, everyone thought the NPU system is supposed to do something different.
Let me stop you there. Councilman Dozer, I'm going to give you this. It's like being on a game show. What is the purpose of the NPU system as you see it?
As I see it is what Rohit alluded to, is that it needs to be a way for the community not only to learn about what's happening in their community, but to drive that to help guide what's happening in their community. And I think Rohit is spot on. One of the challenges that we see in NPUs across the city is it doesn't always reflect who is the community. How do we define community? Oftentimes, if I'm a homeowner, my kids are in daycare, I have a babysitter, I have the means to be able to participate in this process. But if I'm working 2 or 3 jobs or rely on public transportation, I need to get a babysitter, then I'm not included in that process. But my home neighborhood in Mechanicsville, 90% renter, last census. And unfortunately, the folks that are having trouble making ends meet aren't necessarily the ones that are able to come out to a community meeting. So to me, that's the system, but we're not able to execute in that way that should be.
So Rohit, you all came up with some recommendations that you felt would help. But before we get to those recommendations, who saw the recommendations and who is responsible for implementing? Because y'all just came up with the recommendations. They're not technically binding.
Yeah. I mean, the city often decides when something is binding or not based on convenience. But the requirement, there was an actual review process that is supposed to happen by the city of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. But the last review of the NPU system was only done 4 years after its creation in 1978. So from 1978 to 2019, there was not a review of the neighborhood planning unit system done by the city of Atlanta. The city of Atlanta said, we will do reviews of other people's reviews, but they never actually went through the process of doing a review themselves. So if you don't review something for 40 plus years, then you are going to find a lot of challenges within that system because there's been so many things that have been unaddressed for a very, very long time.
So the first thing y'all said is, well, listen, let's strengthen the NPU system purpose.
Yes, let's align on what it is. You can't go, if the charter is indicating this is a common city problem, the charter gives a blanket instruction to say the city council, the legislative body of the city of Atlanta, should come up with a process for something. And depending on political expediency, the council will create process or it will avoid creating one in the first place. The NPU suffers from this problem, which is it does not enumerate clearly what the process of the neighborhood planning unit system should be beyond participating in the comprehensive development plan, and that people should be able to get some information there.
Y'all got a process, Councilman Dozer?
Well, I know with this being the 50th anniversary of the NPU system, the Department of City Planning is looking to revisit that conversation. Now, where they
so
are.
The answer is no.
The answer is not yet. And I think.
Well, okay. It's still a no because you don't have a process.
But I think what's important is, and I alluded to this earlier, having the staff and the capacity to go through that review, to work with CCI and others to ensure that we get to a comprehensive review at the same time that we're doing a new CDP, the same time we're doing a new zoning rewrite, there's a lot happening, and we're working as a council.
So there's a lot involved. What department is this under city planning?
Department of City Planning.
The NPU system, the purpose would fall under that department.
Correct, under that office. And our goal as a city council is make sure they have the staff, have the funding, have the resources to be able to execute as was described by Rohit. But I don't think we're there yet, but that's something that we've advocated for. It's been, at least in the budget priorities that I've shared or sent the last 2 cycles since I've been on city council, making sure that we get to that point, and I'm going to continue to fight for that.
Is it a funding issue here?
I think it's a capacity issue. Like
Okay.
I said, there's all these other big things that are happening citywide that's taking all the time and attention from the department and from that office that makes it hard to specifically focus on this. As important as it is, there's some constrained resources, and it's just building capacity where we need it.
Rohit, you all also said, look, we need to strengthen the NPU's leadership and capacity.
Yeah. So Leah LaRue was a party of one trying to figure this out, which is often what happens in Atlanta is we find a strong, smart black woman to figure this out for all of us with a problem that has happened for a long time.
Are you saying it's a problem to find a smart
No,
black
I
woman?
think that we have,
I
no,
wanna be
not
clear.
at all. Look,
Okay.
I know exactly where I am right now and who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
I am very clear. I am very clear. I'm about to order a rose.
I'm glad to hear
I got
that,
you.
brother.
Look, yes. No,
I just
I'm
want
at
you
the
to be
Ke'nekt.
clear.
I'm here. Yes. No, it is absolutely not a problem. I think it is the default that we put black women leaders in positions where they do not have the capacity. We don't apparently have a capacity problem to market the words of Maynard, but we have a capacity problem to actually practice the work of Maynard. And to me, that's an issue because it cannot only be that we talk about the NPU system during the 50-year anniversary because that's a way to elevate a narrative that seems popular, but folks have been talking about the NPU system for a long time. You can hate on the NPU system all you want, but there are folks who have been inside of that system holding it together on a volunteer basis, begging for support and help, saying, we're meeting in a building that doesn't even have air conditioning while there's another place that's having sushi during their NPU meeting. So how could you possibly say that the system is equal or equitable? So I think we have to have an honest conversation about the NPU system outside of just celebrating it, which we do, but we have to figure out how this thing is going to work for the next 50 years.
By the way, I got an email that said, woo, bro, he cleaned that up, didn't he?
Yeah, I got it. Yep.
I'm just keeping it
I'm
right.
in Atlanta. I know where I am. Yes, absolutely.
But
Yes.
another recommendation, Rohit, you also, first of all, Councilman, those of you agree with everything you just said?
1,000%.
All right. Strengthening the
Doja is one of the good ones too. So let's not I just want to be clear.
Well, you
He's one
got
of the
these
good ones.
emails coming.
Okay, yeah.
Strengthening the NPU's transparency, evaluation, and accountability.
Yes. So two things that are really important out of that. Number one is that a lot of information about decisions that the city makes doesn't get to the NPU until after the city had already made that decision. So even if the city does a good thing, like create a place, a response to folks who are experiencing homelessness, those services and those initiatives and projects can't go to the neighborhood after you've already made the decision. The point of the NPU system is that that's supposed to be a collaborative process. So that's number one on transparency. On the issue of accountability is folks say one thing and then they do another. And folks say one thing and they do another. And what happens is that no one actually holds them accountable. And one of the things that I've learned, honestly, and I'm not just saying this because I'm here at a place like the Ke'nekt, is we cannot have a conversation about moving forward without a conversation about repairing the harm that we've already done. Sure. So I think a part of the conversation about accountability is repairing harm. And the last is about evaluation, which is we have to consistently, on an ongoing basis, evaluate this system to make sure it gets better and better over time, not just do it when it is a milestone year.
Is there a perception that NPUs don't have as much power as people would like for them to think? I have an email here from Steve. He says the NPU has no teeth in the game. The developers rule. If they could stop a project, they may truly get to have a say on their community.
I think it depends on the issue. I mean, in terms of what's in the city code, everything that comes out of the NPU, every vote, it's just a recommendation. The vote that determines whether a project moves forward, whether rezoning happens, whether something gets approved, ultimately comes from city council. And where NPUs typically or historically have had outsized influence is city council members responding to the politics or the vibe or those sorts of challenges where I can tell this community is opposed to this project. I'm not going to support it because even though it's just a recommendation, I'm not going to support this project because I can tell there's some pain here. This is some point of conflict and point of consternation, and I think it's very project to project, but it's a recommendation for most things that come out of NPUs. I came into this process, into this fight coming out of NPUV, which I moved to Mechanicsville right as the Braves were leaving the Summerhill community, volunteered with the Turnerfield Community Benefits Coalition, volunteered with NPUV. And one of the things that we fought tooth and nail to try to make sure happened was that we conditioned the rezoning of that area on having a community benefits agreement. The NPU voted down the rezoning because there was no commitment to a CBA, and yet that rezoning still was able to happen. And so those situations are happen too frequently to I'm not going to say that NPUs don't have any power at all, but
sure.
I think that when it really matters, the power isn't in the hands of the people who need it the most.
I know we've had this conversation before. If there were binding community benefits agreements, would that help then the community feel like they really do have a say when it comes to big development? I know some elected officials feel like, no, you'll scare away some developers. But I've heard other people say, if you tell developers up front what they can and cannot do, what they will and will not do,
they'll find a way. They'll find a way to make it happen. And I think the key is, to your point, is being upfront about it. I know other communities across the country regularly do community benefits agreements. They did a community benefits agreement when they redid Staples Center in Los Angeles, did a community benefits agreement over when they expanded Columbia University's campus in Harlem. And those communities are so used to that process that those developers have just learned to navigate that ecosystem based on it becomes part of the cost of doing business. In the city of Atlanta, we haven't done anything like that yet. We talk about community benefits agreements, but we haven't done anything to where we have something legally binding. But I think once we do something for the first, they said the same thing about inclusionary zoning. They say the same thing about all these other big policies and things and ideas.
TADs and all that.
But once we do it, once you start getting that muscle memory down, it just becomes the way of doing business. And so we just have to have the political courage. And I say this as a politician. We have to have the political courage and have to have the political will to move us in that direction so that it does become the norm.
Is there a timeline for you that you would like to see as we begin to wrap up this NPU system in place, the process in place? I mean, what does that look like? Is that still under Mayor Dickens? He's going to run for re-election, obviously. Would you like to see that in his administration? You have to get it done.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I know Rohit had alluded to the fact that, we got to do more than just celebrate this 50th year anniversary. But I do think, 50 years is a good place. Now, we should have started years ago, but now is better. Doing it now is better than waiting another 50 years. And so, showing that, hey, we've come a long way. Let's make sure we map out the next 50 years in a way that's going to be sustainable. So we do this for another 100 years. Now's the time to do it. And so let's lean on that history and lean on that legacy to really show us the path forward.
Rohit, I'll give you the last word. Timeline to get this process going so that everyone understands what the purpose is, and then you lead into leadership and accountability and transparency and all that.
Yeah, I think this year there needs to be actual codified language, meaning that it is embedded in our law that what the purpose and the power of the NPU system actually is, so we can all play from the same playbook. And then from there, I think there needs to be a portion of that where we actually, in the comprehensive development planning process, to figure out how we're going to repair the harm that's already been done to the NPU system before we talk about all the amazing things that we're going to do moving forward.
All right, Rohit Matra, Executive Director, Center for Civic Innovation, Atlanta City Councilmember Jason Dozier, District 4. Thank you both for taking time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
There's more right after this. How you doing? Rose
Y'all
Scott,
done
nice to
woke.
meet you. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, all this.
Let me take it.
Yeah, I keep the ink pen.
Oh,
Cause I got some notes.
you know.
Can you slide a little bit closer to the mic?
Girl, this chair feel like it's about to fall apart.
All right.
It's not. It's not. We will cut the show.
And this is Closer Looks Coffee Conversations, broadcasting live from inside the Ke'nekt Cooperative. Located at 1492 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard. The drink of the day is simply the rose. It has rose petals in it. It's delicious, so come on and get it. It's our monthly community conversation. Today, it's all about the power of community. I want to go ahead and welcome in longtime resident and community advocate, not just for the Westview neighborhood, but Capitol View. She told me earlier, she said, Rose, I'm a Grady baby. And here's what's interesting about this guest. Don't nobody know her last name. It's just Miss Catherine. And when you just go by that, that's all I'm going to say. So we welcome Miss Catherine. Also, Terry Ross, parliamentarian for MPUT. And I met Kyle Lamont years ago. I was doing a story on the Beltline. He's a chairperson for MPUS. Good to see you again, Kyle. Kyle, I'll start with you because you heard what Rohit revealed in that their NPU assessment. Spot on. Anything that stood out to you that you want to counter?
I think the part about separating budgeting and planning is really important to highlight. I think that the City of Atlanta rests all of its responsibility for community engagement on the NPU system, but doesn't fund it in a way to be impactful. So we have 26 NPUs that fight for $3,000 to $5,000 per NPU to reach all of the residents of this city in a way that entice them to join or be involved, and that's simply ineffective. We've underfunded most of our avenues to reaching out, whether it be through the Atlanta television system and other entities that reach our seniors and legacy community members. So as long as we continue to not put our money where our mouth is, we'll no longer have anybody to show up to be engaged.
All right, Terry Ross, you heard what Kyle said. You agree?
I do. It's one thing to talk about it. It's completely different to be about it. And that's where we fall short so many times.
Ms. Catherine, you've been a resident for a long time. You've seen developments come in and out. What do you hear from the community about their concerns, or maybe even their grievances with being able to access the city for help, for resources, for input?
Thank you for that question. And I will say, dear white people and dear black people, I'm about to tell y'all. At the end of the day, we don't have voices. And the voices that is, I hear them because I walk the community, I'm engaged with the community, I know what's being said. We don't have the perfect timing for people to come because most of our people are working. We're working people. We have to take care of our grandkids, our children, and we also have to somehow get a timing right where we can actually sit at the table and give some truth. Everybody want to be perfect in speaking, perfect in making us feel like, oh, wow, community. This is just not a buzzword. You just don't go around saying, oh, I'm in the community. What are you actually doing in the community, and what are the politics actually doing for us? Zero.
Okay. Terry, let me come back to you because I'm curious, how do you all, if you have confusion or tension in your NPUs, how are you all able to work through that? Because I've heard people reach out to me, they say, well, another problem with the NPUs, Rose, is sometimes there's not a unified cohesiveness within the NPUs, and that's a problem.
Sure, and I don't have to tell you, Rose, you know how eclectic the community can be. And so bringing everyone together, collaborating, and coming up with a common decision or a common idea sometimes can be challenging, but that's part of the work, and that's part of the democracy and what the NPU allows. I'm a strong advocate for the NPU system.
Well, and not speaking for the city, but I could understand the city saying, well, there's this NPU and they have these different factions, so how do we know who to listen to? How do you work through that, Kyle?
You lift up the voices that are able to show up, which means that there is certainly community that is left without a voice being heard. The way the NPU is positioned in the city, to her point, it doesn't allow for the working class to often show up. You know, these are times where we're either working second jobs to pay for the taxes on our properties in this city, or paying just to maintain our dwellings in this city, in a city with vast economic disparity. The black and brown people have to go to work to even catch up in a slight way to be able to keep up in this city.
That's problematic then. So how do you work through that?
So we do our best to find innovative and unique ways to reach those that don't often show up. So in our NPU, we have a door knocking campaign. We try to use social media as much as possible, but then we try to make phone calls on the back end to certain members who we know would like to have their voice heard but aren't able to show up. And we'll try to read those into our minutes and encourage them to email in spite of not being in attendance so that those voices can too be reflected.
I want to stay with you for a moment. NPUS, you have legacy residents there, and you have some residents who moved in. What concerns you about legacy residents being able to stay there, and also folks who are just moving into the neighborhood? those black and brown people that you mentioned, that they can stay there. Because last time we talked about property taxes.
We did.
I don't want to put your business out on the street, but you that increase was something, wasn't it?
It was astronomical. And I'm not alone. I'm not an island or a silo in experiencing that. I think most people across the city have seen their property taxes increase in significant ways. I live in a Beltline community that's exasperating these things with rapid growth, gentrification, revitalization, however you want to package the buzzword. It's detrimental to certain people in our community. So we have legacy community members that have spent most of their lives educating our young people, putting in the hard work to brighten the minds of our young people, but are struggling to stay in their homes in retirement simply because they cannot keep up with taxes. And so it was a problem then, and it's a problem now. We've seen the Beltline roll out legacy retention programs that have not been necessarily effective in curbing the issue.
All right. Terry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add that in 2015, we did the Atlanta Community Engagement Playbook. That was the framework for both the city of Atlanta as well as residents on what genuine community engagement looked like. You know, economic development means nothing if it's not inclusive. Inclusive economic development. We were talking about the West End Mall and how that property was going to be developed, and there's so many other examples where it has fallen short because it was not inclusive economic development. And if you don't have community development to go with economic development, we're still going to fall short. And so there's a lot of work to be done there. And Kyle will tell you, the NPU volunteers are all working for free.
Yeah.
Ms. Catherine, go ahead. What do you want to add about that?
That's for sure. They got to understand that these positions, people are working for free. You know, it takes a lot to hear the noise in your ear when you're actually out in the trenches and actually doing the work.
And you're out there. You listen to people. You hear them. You're a legacy resident.
Yes.
You feel like you can stay here. You can maintain. You know, because you listen. You're a
I'm
queen.
old school.
You're a queen in this community.
I got my taxes right.
Okay.
They not. Nobody's getting my spot. Mine is for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
but do you have friends, other legacy residents who might be struggling?
If they're my friends, they know better.
All right.
Because I educate them. Like, you need to know you need to do your tax exempt. You need to make sure that you're leaving someone in your family in charge, not just because they're your favorite child. You need to leave a business person in charge of your property, so when you leave the scene, that you know that you left generational wealth there, and it's not going to move.
All right. Terry, how do you assess being able to access your city council members, or if there's an issue, not just with potholes, and potholes are important, but if there's major development coming in?
Sure, and Rohit spoke on it when he was here earlier. I mean, navigating city government can be challenging. It can be difficult, and you have to know where the potholes are on the path to get to our government and our elected officials. And the only way to do that is to go down and engage daily, weekly, monthly. I mean, put in the work. And just like Kyle mentioned, that often can't happen for folks who have to work for a living.
Then I'm going to ask you all this question as we've got time goes so quickly as we're going to wrap up. Do you feel like there's power in communities here in Atlanta?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've seen our collective power come and bring about change in many aspects in our communities. Oftentimes that requires us partnering across these imaginary neighborhood boundaries to make it happen. Murphy Crossing is a significant example of that. In Oakland City, we galvanized 400 residents to then go and demonstrate against the Beltline because we felt like our voices hadn't been heard. You know, there is a pendulum to that, because here we are a year and a half after that developer was selected. The Beltline promised to remain engaged, yet it's been crickets. And also, I want to, highlight that our MPUs don't necessarily align with our councilpersons' districts. So you can very well have 4 neighborhoods in one MPU represented by 4 different council people. And I just want to highlight, you had Councilmember Jason Dozier here. When I need something done, I have to call someone who's not my council member. That's Councilmember Jason Dozier, right? And so because I know he's the person with the mindset, the legislative wherewithal to
Who's your
make it
council
happen.
member for your district?
We have several
you have
council
several.
people for our district. So one of them being Councilmember Lewis, Councilmember Boone, and Councilmember Dozier.
So that's 3.
3.
And Councilmember Dozier is the one that you feel like you have.
So the maps changed at the
Right.
beginning of this year. Last year and before now, Oakland City has always been represented by District 4. We are now represented by District 12. But now, again, if I need something done, I'm sure to call Councilmember Dozier.
Well, I think after this conversation, you may have some greater access. I don't know. We started all of this because of the vision of Atlanta's first black mayor, Maynard Jackson. Cal, we'll just go around the table here. His vision, it will end up what he wanted, having greater access for residents to the city in terms of planning and helping develop the communities they live in. We can get there.
Yes.
Yes, no, maybe?
It is my prayer and hope that we get there, but hope alone won't move the needle. The city of Atlanta has got to wrap its mind around the needs of its citizens and constituents. And this is not a yesterday problem. This is a right now and today problem.
Ms. Catherine?
I'm thinking, Atlanta is little New York now. It's little New York, and we need to accept that. And in accepting that, you got to move with progress. Not saying that, hey, let's get rid of all the old. Yeah, but sometimes you got to move the old way and just bring something very good in. And I'm going to say, stop thinking that we're begging. We're not begging people. Let's get out here and show them what we got.
Okay. Terry?
Yeah, it takes creativity, imagination, innovation. Right now, we live in a space where there's 5 different generations living, working, and playing all in the same space. Each generation communicates differently, and so that in order to engage all of those stakeholders, you have to be imaginative in how you're going to engage them and get them there. And we don't just want a seat at the table, we want to sit down and eat.
All right, that's a great way to end this conversation. Thank you so much. That's it for this special live edition of Coffee Conversations in partnership with the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta. I want to thank the Ke'nekt Cooperative for allowing us to be here, and for all of you.
Thank you, Rose.
Yes.
Thank you.
So stay tuned to WABE from Atlanta and inside the Ke'nekt Cooperative. A big thank you to everyone who worked here today, our incredible WABE team. Thank you so much. From the Ke'nekt Cooperative, I'm Rose Scott.